Development Authority will please come to order. Take roll call, please.
Wayne Clark.
Yes.
Karen Gale.
Yes.
Don Niemer.
Here.
Mike Suter.
Here.
Jerry Mutter.
Here.
We have a quorum.
We have a quorum. First item on the agenda is approve the minutes of the February 12th meeting. Is there any additions or correction? If not, can I have a motion, please?
So moved. Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Minutes stand approved. First item on the agenda tonight. Discussion regarding proposed Alice Yards residential development by land by label within the South 70th Street, West Washington Street corridor. Patrick?
Mr. Chairman, tonight, at the last meeting, I kind of highlighted the land by label project that on 70th and Washington within the Alice Yards development. And tonight we have the developer here, Ian Martin. We've been going the past several months going over different development scenarios, and we're to a point where I'd like land by label to present what the financial packages that they're requesting of the city and their project. The project has gone through Plan Commission for approval and has received that approval, and I think the CSM has been approved as well at Common Council. So, their incremental steps are going forward, and tonight, after tonight's discussion, there are a number of things that potentially could happen that we need to start laying out the calendar to achieve in order for this development to happen potentially yet this year. So I'm going to invite Ian Martin up, and he will present his project. Now, we have a new screen here tonight without a mouse, so he'll be using our laptop to be able to do his presentation. But if something happens with the technology, we do have a hard copy. Would anybody like a hard copy, just for sake of purposes of putting notes on or anything?
Oh, that'd be fine.
Okay.
Ian, you have the floor.
All right, thank you. Well, thank you all for having me here. As Patrick said, we've spent a lot of time. We've been after it now since, I think, on the TIF piece in particular, since probably October, working through different variations, going down parallel paths and refining cost and design. And so I'll get into some of that stuff. But I think the big picture question here is just, why are you asking for a TIF? And so that's what I'm going to focus on. You guys are very familiar with tax incremental financing, so it's a lot easier than some places we have to go to. So I'm just going to focus on the things that I think are critical to it. What's the revenue? What's the cost? And then I'm happy to answer any questions you guys have as I go. So this is the location. I think you guys all know that. I think the goal from day one in our very first meeting was we appreciated the importance of this corner. It is, for a lot of purposes, kind of a front door of West Allis when you're coming north to south into the city. It sits right next to Greenfield, obviously major east-west corridor. So we all embraced the sort of reality that this needed to be a signature building that had some really unique special features to it. And I'll get into some of those. Real quick, just running down the sort of summary of what we have here. It's 246 units. It looks like it's two separate buildings, but as you'll see, they're connected underground, similar to what I did at the West when I worked on that project. Just a good, efficient way to park the project. We'll spend some time talking about it, but about 50% of the units are studios and ones, and the other 50% are 2 bedrooms and 3 bedrooms. There's 2 different types of 2 bedrooms. There's big ones that are on the corner of some of the corners of the building, which are real high value, real attractive units, lots of glass and balconies. And we'll talk about why that's important. It's fully amenitized. It's hard to think about a signature building that doesn't have all the main amenities that tenants demand these days. If we want to achieve that kind of top of market, maybe even set the market in the rent, we really got to provide this stuff to the tenant. So it's all stuff you've seen before, and these are just some representative images on it. The clubhouse here is sort of sits at the intersection of the building. One one of the ideas we had was it was really important to keep some pedestrian connectivity, not just along 70th and Washington, but also to get into the Summit Place office. So the idea was, how do we create a kind of special portal that would allow pedestrians to do it? There's the obvious pedestrian connection on the south side of the building by the dog park. But this portal is a unique feature, and so we flank the portal with our clubhouse, so leasing staff, fitness center would be in there probably, club room, those sort of things. A roof deck, not technically, to be fair, a rooftop deck, but a deck at the top of the building. You'll see in some of the renderings, the idea is you just sort of erode the corner of the building and create your deck there. So the image on the upper right is a good example of that. It's a nice way to provide the amenity, but not incur all the structural costs that comes along with actually putting it on top of the building. It also means you don't have to look at a lot of the rooftop units and some of the ugly mechanical stuff that sits in the middle of the building. This is a little bit nicer to use than that. And then just the interior courtyard. So lawn game, swimming pool, grilling area. You can see in the images that the grades are adjusted a little bit. So even though you're in the interior of the building, when you're at the grill or the lawn game where you play bags, it sits a little bit higher than the pool. That was all strategically done to minimize the amount of contaminated export we have to take off the site. And then the dog run. I mean, they're ubiquitous. Everybody's got a dog these days, so we thought it was a good amenity. So obviously one of the big components of underwriting a multifamily project, or any project for that matter, is what's the income that it produces. And so as we've had these conversations with the staff about the project and some of the city consultants, there is a sort of initial reaction, I think, when you look at this project about why is your rent so low? And I think where that comes from really is when you look at the bottom line here, average rental rate per square foot. Let me back up. Deal A and Deal B are real projects that are being proposed in the city right now, is my understanding. And so these are the metrics from those projects. So if you look at the average rental rate per square foot at the bottom, and you see, for example, Deal B at $2.10 a foot, and then you look at our proposed project at $1.97, you might look at that and say, well, why is your rent so low? That must be creating more pressure on the tax incremental financing request. But I think the answer to that really is all about the unit mix that I talked about. So we have more large units. So the square footage is more, which makes that per square foot rent number go down. But if you look at the average rental rate, what we just call the chunk rate, so what, and this is really what people care about, right? Because that's the check you pay every month. So when you look at that number, you'll see at $1,779, we're more than $100 higher than the comparable deal, Deal B, even though our per square foot's lower. So it's really just the byproduct of what I talked about. When you compare the unit mix between the two projects, we have more big units, 2s and 3s. We're very similar to what I did at the West, but different than these newer deals that the city's evaluating. I think it's a good thing for a couple reasons. One is just the amount of rental revenue is higher, right? So you take that average rental rate of $1,779 multiplied by 246. That's just more revenue into the project. Oops. I think the other thing I like to point out is a lot of the new projects that have been delivered in West Allis and are being contemplated by West Allis are really focused on small units. So not just a lot of studios and one bedrooms, but a lot of small studios and one bedrooms too. So you see and this is going on all over the country, but you see a lot of, studio units now that are creeping down pretty close to 400 square feet. I think that's great. Those appeal to a important demographic of people. But I think what's been lost on some of the recent development is just the reality that there are a lot of important demographic folks that want 2 bedrooms, 3 bedroom units. So whether you're a young couple, maybe one of the two works from home sort of thing, an empty nester setup, there's just a young family. A lot of those people aren't going to fit into a 400 square foot studio unit. So I think that's a good thing. So then, why does it cost more? And just to frame it for you, those other deals, Deal A and Deal B, I think what I understand is that the hard cost for those projects was about $207,000 per unit. My project is at $226,000, $227,000 a unit. So the understandable question is why is yours more expensive? And I think the answer to that is there's several elements to it, but generally a lot of it ties back to just the nature of the project and what we're trying to accomplish. One of the very first comments we got when we met with Patrick and Sean was, you need to maximize the density of the project. And I think the idea of maximizing the density was really, one, it's a prominent corner, but two, that's how we create long-term tax value for the city. So figure out how to maximize the density. As part of that, we added, in some cases, 2 stories, in other parts of the building, 1 story. That generated the need for underground parking, and I'll show you some slides on that. But the other thing it did is it created the opportunity for a future phase 2. And you can see that I've highlighted it here. About 130 units. We did a fit study just to see if it was real, how much we could get in there. And so about 130 units. If you think about, there's a range, but just for sake of easy math, if we have 130 units and the average tax bill is about $4,000 a unit, we're talking about annual tax receipts from the second phase of, about $580,000 roughly. And that's all, the original proposal was using all the land. So that was a big change from the original project. I talked a little bit about how when we added the stories, that did force us to go into an underground parking solution. If you scan back to this prior slide here, we did analyze comparatively how our parking count compares to the other projects, and I think we're generally comparable to all the others. We might be a little bit higher, but again, I think I have to be on the higher end of reasonable because of the 2 bedrooms and 3 bedrooms. So it's just more likely that somebody that's in a 3 bedroom is going to have 2 cars than somebody in a studio. But we did make sure we were kind of in the realm of reasonable, I would say. What did I do, Sean? Did I go the wrong way? There we go, sorry. Okay, so maximizing density, that's the underground parking. The other thing, it just wasn't good enough to do 1 level of underground parking to get the count. So what you see here is this is actually at grade parking. And that's it was just a byproduct of we had to get the unit count. So then the question became, well, nobody wants to look at bad parking, right? Especially on whether you're on the interior of the building or especially on 70th. Mm-hmm. And so you can see what we ended up doing here is putting in some street level liner units. Mm-hmm. So when you're walking down the street, you're looking at an actual living unit. It's got a little stoop as opposed to, a parking garage. We talked about the pedestrian connectivity here. The image in the upper right shows that portal that goes through to Summit Place. And you can see how the amenity in the clubhouse sort of flanks each side of it. We talked a little bit about the Main Street identity and activation, and this is really just the importance of keeping units on the street as opposed to looking at a parking garage. Visually, it's better. It's a better place to live when you have an active sidewalk. So we went through a bunch of traffic analysis and did some studies to make sure that all the future contemplated improvements on 70th and Washington could be accommodated, and we could still get these units in. I think the other part of it was just, if you're going to create a signature building, you really have to have some kind of striking elements of the building, and you really have to have nice materials. So what we did was we created, as you can see, just really high touch point glazing on the corners. So the most visible parts of the building, we've really gone with this big glazing move. You can see we've added balconies. These are big balconies. Strategically, when we went more to the interior of the building, you'll see that the windows become more, they're still big, but more normal. So I mention that just because we were trying to be strategic about, okay, where are we going to spend our money on the building, and the corners was the right place to do it. You can see the roof deck on that image on the upper right there. So it's easy to show the pictures, but then it's a little bit harder to, so you still got to quantify it, right? So here's the math on it. So that's my total all-in per unit cost. We broke out what's the underground parking cost. And so you can see here that's about $13,000. What really drives that number up is the fact that we have to have 2 levels of precast concrete now. So rather than just one, now we have 2 levels because we've got to build on top of it and park underneath it. Contaminated soil, once we excavate, we got to go someplace with the soil. It's the right thing to do to take it off site. Theoretically, maybe we could excavate it and temporarily store it behind the building by Summit Place, but it just felt like we're just kicking down the can down the road anyway. So this number contemplates that we're going to haul the soil off site to a landfill. And then when you look at okay, these big moments of the architecture on the corners of the building, with all the windows, the balconies, creating that nice streetscaping, the pedestrian walkways, that's about $3,000 a unit. And so if you just subtract those sort of, what those design decisions cost us from what our budget is, you end up at $207,465. And that's really puts us pretty close to what the other properties are at. It's a little bit higher, but really I think it's pretty comparable. It's a little hard to quantify, and for some reason the number shows up in yellow here, but when we increased the density, we thought it was important. The staff wanted to see, okay, what's the economic impact of increasing the density? And so we had Baker Tilly do an economic impact study. You can see the various numbers here. The one that you can't see shows you how good I am at this. That's actually the one I wanted to spend the most time talking about. But that's
I'll apologize for that. When we transferred to our format, that didn't.
That's all right.
The color didn't change. I'm sorry.
That's all right. It's 587,000 is what that number is, and that represents what the annual expenditure from the project into local businesses is. So for me, I like that. I like referring to that number because candidly, when I read numbers like total economic output and labor income, I don't, if I'm being honest, really understand exactly what that means. But when I see, okay, 587,000 spent at local businesses, that actually I understand what that means.
I changed your colors.
Yeah, I see. So I was just trying to say, okay, what's the schedule here going forward? You know, where we're at, as Patrick said, is we're really at a point where we like the project. I have beat on my contractor about as hard as I can before they won't take my phone call anymore. So I think the numbers kind of are where they're at right now. I think the good news is the market's better today than it was maybe a year or 2 years ago, where every month, you know, the numbers were going up. We have more stability today than we've had in a long time. So I feel good about the numbers we've got. So really the next step is let's get the construction documents, hard bid the project, and then go finish up the capital stack, raise the money. You know, it's probably going to be about a $15 million equity raise. So it's a lot of money. We can get it. It's just not going to happen overnight. So we got to work on it a little bit. If we can do that, that would put us in a position to break ground this fall. We'd be done then summer of 26, and I think we'd be fully stabilized by 27, spring of 27. So that's sort of the big picture schedule. That's all I got.
Any questions? Does anyone have a question, sir, Ian, at this time? None?
What are you contemplating the rents for the 2s and 3s?
Yeah, so the 3s are, we're projecting $2,625. That doesn't include parking, or if you had a pet fee. Sorry, I'm just going to scroll back to the rent roll here so we can see it. 2,625. 2 bedrooms are 2,100. That's a bit of a blend. So if you remember, we had some big ones that are on the corners and some small ones. So the bigger ones are more like 2,300. The smaller ones are more like 2,000. 1 bedrooms and studios. You can see the numbers. We did work with the staff to do a comparison, and I'm happy to provide it, where we looked at all the rent in the market, and then we applied a 3% or 3.5% growth factor to the existing rent in the market. If you think about it, right, by the time these units are ready to be leased, it's, you know, call it 18 months down the road, 24 months down the road, so you would expect them to be higher. So when you compare the rent that I'm showing you here with the comparable rent in the market, assuming it grows at 3.5%, we're still at the very high end of that range, in some cases over that range. So these rents are anticipating that the market continues to perform the way it has been.
How many parking stalls? I think I saw maybe 300 and some. I can't read. Yeah, it was pretty quick. So 246 units, and
Yeah, so if you look at the covered ratio, about 1.2 stalls, so that's underground. On the east side of the building, there is a big, in between the building and Summit Place, there's a big row of surface parking. That'd be great for, you know, visitors or people that maybe don't want to pay for, you know, the underground's more expensive. And then we have a handful of surface stalls on the interior, really so visitors can come to the clubhouse and do a tour. So total 383 as a ratio, 1.5 total and 1.2 per unit covered.
So there is a capital stack that we'll get into during closed session, and then the official TIF ask that's been presented to the city. The TIF ask itself is around $3.7 million in a TIF grant, and then there's a $2.2 million in EPA loan funds that address the soil. Being old, that's the old foundry portion of the Hollis-Chalmers site, so there are some historic industrial soil issues that need to be addressed. I mean, it could be slab on grade construction, but if you're going to put underground parking to get the density, that soil has to be hauled off as we all seen before in other projects, and that's a huge cost today in terms of that. And underground parking, as Ian presented, is a huge cost for our development as well. And then there's a pay-go TIF component that is estimated around $11 million, but we'll get into how that's all structured and then in closed session.
What did you say the EPA was, 2 million?
2.2 million.
2.2 million.
We're trying to maximize the use of the EPA program
Yep.
to help with
Yep.
the environmental
Yep.
costs. So.
So the context, Patrick talks about it like it was, like we got to that right away. But
No.
I mean, we really have been working on it since October, and we've run a bunch of different scenarios, testing each one of those, sort of funding sources to see what's the right way to do it. I know the city's got other projects too that we have to be sensitive to. So it was that's where we're at. That was the byproduct, I think, of a lot of testing and pro formas and Excel files.
Right. I mean, the original presentation to us was the whole site with 100 and some units on it, if I recall right.
About 160, yeah.
Right, and it was slab on grade construction. So this maximizes, land's our greatest asset for development in the city, so if we can go up, and the idea here is like 70th Street is our corporate gateway into our city to kind of do something very significant architecturally. And the kind of the inspiration is East Washington and Madison. If you've gone through that, it's gone through a renaissance, and it's, the developments are very signature in the way Mr. Martin has incorporated the glass and the end cap type of construction elements into the project, so we do have that feel. And getting more housing in this area is important. Now you might recall the development agreement with Allen Yards was 350,000 square feet of office. So this is a true pivot from what was in the original plan. But so has the world pivoted in terms of office space.
Yeah.
I mean, we can continue to search for those, and that could take some time. Or if we look at what we're seeing as successful in our city, as Sauna of the West, Element 84, and now the construction of 85th and National, the demand for housing is very strong in our city, and people like the amenities and things that are nearby. So we'll get into further detail and analysis of this in closed session. But I want to thank Ian for coming in tonight and presenting the project to the CDA.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Looks nice.
Thank you.
All right, we'll go to item number 3. Resolution amending financial estate consulting service contract with SB Freeman Development Advisors in the amount not to exceed $25,000. Patrick, you have the floor.
Mr. Chairman, as you're aware, we go to SB Freeman for outside consultation on TIF agreements and development agreements with various projects and analysis of performance, etc. They've been working diligently on a couple of various projects that we have, whether it was 85th and National, this project as well, and going over the numbers and comparing in terms of construction costs, etc., so that we can provide you the details necessary to make an informed decision. And of course, every so often we have to come back and ask for additional funding for that.
I'll move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved for approval and second. Any further discussion? If not, Mr. Clark, go ahead.
Patrick, how long do you think 25,000 will last? A month?
No, it should get us to fall, at least through the next. As you see, we have this development to get through. I know 92nd and Greenfield is on the coattails of this one as well, and then as well as Sona 4 or Sona 2, or the Lot 4 within Mark. That project is out there, but I think we're going to have other analysis coming. So.
Okay, thank you.
No further discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Nay,
Oh,
opposed?
I have to do a roll call.
Oh, I did.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wayne Clark,
Yes.
Karen Gale,
Aye.
Don Niemer,
Aye.
Mike Suter,
Yes.
Jerry Motter.
Aye.
Resolution passes.
Okay, we'll go to item number
Thank you.
4. Resolution approves sub-recipient agreement between the City of West Dallas and Milwaukee County for awards of 2023 federal home funds from the Milwaukee County Home Consortium. Patrick, you have the floor.
Mr. Chairman, each year we have an agreement with Milwaukee County relative to home funds. Home funds are used to create, they're federal dollars that are awarded to Milwaukee County and West Dallas and Wauwatosa as a consortium. And those funds are for creating affordable housing. We've built homes in the past throughout the city strategic, we bought foreclosed properties and tore them down and built an affordable house. 92nd, there's a couple of images of it. This is one that we bought and tore down and then built a new house at the site using those home funds, and that's sold to someone meeting the income requirements, etc. Do we make money on these? No, but they are. The purpose is to create affordable home ownership in the city. It can also be used for housing rehab, and also can be used for home down payment assistance. And home funds can also be used to as an incentive for developers, whether like you're looking at Longfellow School or other developments to create affordable units within developments as well. The amount I think that's under this agreement would be over $500,000 in the partnership with Milwaukee County. This is an annual thing to approve each year our annual amount that we would get from Milwaukee County, and this is the agreement between the city and Milwaukee County for the agreement.
I'd move approval.
Second.
It's been moved for approval, second. Any further discussion? You need a roll call vote for this?
Yeah, I'll do that.
All right. Patrick, please take your roll call vote.
Wayne Clark,
Yes.
Karen Gale,
Aye.
Don Niemer,
Aye.
Mike Suter,
Yes.
Jerry Motter.
Aye.
Resolution passes.
Resolution passes. Item 5, discussion regarding the draft long-range boundary district plans for eastern industrial corridor of the city of West Dallas. Patrick?
Mr. Chairman, tonight I'm going to have Sean Miller highlight a presentation or study that we're working on that hopefully will be presented to Common Council or introduced to Common Council in April. It's about the industrial corridor on our east side, some of the area around Alice Chalmers, all the way into the 6 Points area, all the way down to the like where Wells Fargo, etc. We utilized a EPA grant for long-term planning purposes that we have, and I'll turn it over to Sean, and he can highlight where the study's at, and get comments or input from the CDA tonight.
Thank you, Patrick. Yes, as Patrick noted, the CDA received the EPA site assessment grant, and as part of that grant, one of the requirements was to do a planning exercise for our major area that has brownfield sites. And so plan for the future, how are you going to handle these brownfields, what is the vision for the city with these sites, and so that was sort of the goal of this plan. The timing of it just happened to sort of line up with our Vision 2045 plan for the entire city. And so what we've done is, what our planning division has accomplished is completed the 2045 plan, and it is going to the Common Council for potential adoption at the March Common Council meeting. This will sort of come in after that, just based on the timing on how long this part of the plan is taken. And it will be an appendix to that plan at this point. So the idea is that many of the things you see here are tied to the values of the 2045 plan for the city. Patrick noted the area that this represents, really the eastern industrial corridor portion of the city. And this CDA contracted with Ayers and Associates to assist on this plan. The goals of the 2045 plan are to grow West Dallas, so add more people. In its heyday, West Dallas had over 70,000 people. Infrastructure is built for it, and so there's a goal there to try to get more people in the city to help our businesses, help our industrial areas, things like that. Invest in parks, creating more vibrant spaces, utilizing right-of-way and creative ways to create destinations for people, things of that nature, and then our roadways. So safer streets was a big theme. As this was public input was taken at different events such as the farmers market, things of that nature. There were I believe like 1,500 responses or points of input from the public, and sort of these were the values that they found throughout the public input process. How does that relate to this area, for the Foundry District portion of the plan? You can kind of see in the upper right, there's the Hank Aaron State Trail that runs around along the northern border of the city. There's a concept of, there's an abandoned spur track that runs up to it that's about a mile long and would run from that Hank Aaron State Trail south to West Mitchell Street. And so it's the idea of converting that abandoned spur track, which is going through sort of the public hearing process of abandonment with the OCR, the railroad, and abutting property owners, and converting that to a pedestrian path where people can bike and walk, and you could access it. It would run through the side of Summit Place, sort of between where Summit Place and Motor Castings is, and then south through we're money these redevelopments that the CDA has approved throughout the years through TIF, the West, the Aurora Clinic, and developments like that, Sona Lofts, and then also, obviously near a farmer's market and things like that. So it's a way to get, as office space evolves and as these other sites evolve, such as Motor Castings, it's a way to create some connectivity between sites, and really create more value within the private sector areas. You can kind of see, getting more people, so establishing what Ian had presented with land by label, with the residential, more bike lanes, and just more interconnectivity, as well as parks. So within one of our TIF districts, we have McKinley Park, and one of the things we've talked about with that is, park improvements using increment from TIF to help create better parks and more green space throughout. Again, this is Transportation Foundry District. Big thing is just better connectivity. We talked about the potential, rails to trails concept coming off the Hank Aaron Trail, but there's also a major project likely coming forward with the I-94 expansion and closure of one of the exits. DOT is proposing to extend West Washington Street from South 70th Street east to South 60th Street. And you can kind of see the path that takes here through really our main employment center, the former Alice Chalmers area, and what's now Summit Place, which has...
West Alice Chalmers Way. I think that's West Alice Chalmers Way. Was the name that council approved?
So
cool.
So that's kind of a neat thing to create that identity.
I think I might have said something about we should have it named after Alice Chalmers, because no one knows that that's where West Alice came from.
And so that's very exciting. The timing of it, the federal government just sort of approved kind of green lighted the I-94 project. That it's set to start in 2025. If that happens, we'll see. But and then Alice Chalmers Way would sort of follow that. So they're thinking as soon as 2026, but it could be a year or two after that as well.
So they would close the ramp first, and then they would put in West Alice Chalmers Way? Why wouldn't you do it the opposite way? But anyways.
That would be ideal.
Yeah, that would make more sense, but hey.
So again, creating the connectivity. Over the years we've had several redevelopments in this area, but nothing's been done to create these connections as we've added people to the area as it's transitioned from industrial to residential and commercial. So this is just sort of that vision. What you see in the lower left is a vision from looking sort of over the Reunion from Greenfield Avenue north. On the west or the left side is obviously Alice Chalmers building where Blast Clean Technologies is there in the corner. And what you see on the other side is a vision of a redeveloped motor casting site. Mm-hmm. And it just shows that sort of the existing spur track being abandoned and converted to rails to trails. We've been out to the site now with the DNR and a few other groups, Rails to Trails group members, and they do see the potential for it to get done and applying for grants and things of that nature along the way. Parks and open spaces, and we kind of talked about, McKinley is an opportunity to create an improved park space through the use of tax increment that comes in. And then there are other opportunities within underutilized sites to create green space, maybe perhaps within the motor casting site or otherwise. Redevelopment areas, so this is shown within the 2045 vision plan itself. And you can see a lot of those areas are on the eastern portion of the city within this Foundry District area. Within the Foundry District plan itself, it did look at 5 specific sites and how they could be reused, just creating a vision and getting the concept going and the discussions going on them. The first site here is the motor casting site, which also ties in other sites to the north, where there's currently some truck driver training and things like that, owned by Summit Place. Overall, it's a 13-acre area, so a large redevelopment opportunity down the line. This will also be impacted by that West Alice Way extension and create additional eyes on it and interest in it. And so just the idea wasn't as you've seen with concept plans, they change with the market. This is just the idea to create some interest and create some discussion on the site. So this shows industrial to the north and some residential as you go south with some green space mixed in along that area. Site 2 is
This is just north of the parking structure for Summit Place, which is 6737 West Washington. So which will now be West Alice Chalmers Way. To the north, there's an area that is We Energies is a transformer station in that area that will be demolished, and then there's some older soils that are in that area that if they were graded out, that could become a pad-ready, around a 6-acre pad-ready site for development. We think that would be a great opportunity to do industrial, which is kind of what's all up in that area as well. The access would come from around the turn of West Alice Chalmers Way. So if you looked at the map, this would have access pretty much near 6600 West Washington. You can kind of see the confluence of where that would come together. So if there would be access to there, maybe adjacent to the parking structure, there could be another access point. But you could get a nice area that is set back here within the center of the Metro Milwaukee area, 6-acre development site. And this is the vision that we put together relative to that parcel. So,
the third concept plan is actually we'll be talking about it at the next as the next agenda item. As as these long-range plans come together, sometimes projects actually come together within the sites you're looking at, and sort of that's been the case on this site located between 65th and 64th and Greenfield Avenue. So we'll be talking about this one a little bit more in the next agenda item on the CDA. And this is just a visual that Jeff and his team have put together for this site. Where is this going? What are we asking? So it's again, I'd said the 2045 is a vision for the entire city as a whole, and the Foundry District plan is sort of the eastern portion of the city specific, sort of the northeastern portion of the city that we had alluded to earlier. And so the idea is that the main plan would go for adoption. That creates the big vision for the city on March 19th, and that this could come back the following month after some refinement.
So that's a bigger book, and we're going through it right now, making sure, and then we'll release it to everybody for their review and comment, and have it introduced to council in April. So pretty exciting stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of really showing there's opportunity in an area right now that many people don't know it's even back there. It's a dead-end road.
Yeah.
So if that becomes accessible, you can see that there's great property value growth within that area, and that's TIF number 7. And we'll talk a little bit about that in closed session. So.
Thank you, Sean. We'll go to item number 6, and you've just touched on it, but discussing proposed development in the 6400 block of West Greenfield Avenue. Patrick?
Mr. Chairman, tonight I'm just asking for some direction relative to the 6400 block and for pretty much the directives to take the project to the next level. Jeff Hook is here. He represents the development group, and he'll provide any comments or answer any questions you may have. Essentially, what's proposed, it's the CD-owned land of the former Spotlight Lounge and the Crawdaddy site. And we're working on the terms of the development agreement where the developer will buy those sites from the city for $1. In exchange, they will demolish those buildings as well, incorporate that into the development. The second part of this is where we need to communicate to the common council or to the city, is that there's a public space on the corner of 64th and Greenfield. So that's city-owned, as well as the parking lot is located just to the north. The parking lot that's located to the north of the Spotlight and Crawdaddy's is part of the development area and owned by the CDA. So one half of the area is CDA, the other half is city. So our recommendation is that the public space be transferred to the developer or sold for $1, as well as the parking lot that's there as well. In exchange, there would be a land transfer after a new park space that's developed, and that's incorporated into the site plan. Things that we're reviewing within this are the alley. Right now it's a T alley, so it goes east-west, north-south through that alley. Is there a way that maybe that could just be an L? We don't know. We're working on that right now, just in terms of that. But we would like to start the discussion of the park space, which is fairly limitedly used, and promote it to the west side, so it has a west elevation versus an east elevation, and it would be prominent on the corner of 65th and Greenfield Avenue. There'd be this nice new public space. It's around 80% of that size. It'll be landscaped by the developer, installed by the developer, and then the land transferred back to the city, and that'll be a city public space, but maintained by the developer. The 8 townhomes that overlook that public space, and the new apartment building that will go on the public space that's existing would have a cafe incorporated on the first floor that would have outdoor dining that would outflow into that public space. So it becomes much more activated and programmed in terms of a public space. And there's some great examples of this here from the rendering, and I think we have some other images as well. So here's the overview site plan. You can kind of see the public space is just to the left, and it'll be prominent on the corner of 65th. An idea is the vision line to the farmers market area, and then also the gateway into the 65th Street kind of redevelopment in the future. There's a example that did we lose the image? The townhomes and without the landscaping put in, but just kind of give you a spatial analysis of the townhomes in the market rate apartment building. So the developer is requesting TIF assistance, and this would be a pay-go TIF. So anything achieved in terms of the increment gain would be utilized to help pay for the cost of demolition, getting the site, the infrastructure, etc. The cost to build, why does a TIF need to happen? The cost to build exceeds the rent and the cost to take down the land and get it ready for development. And be able to generate the necessary return to get capture private equity to put into the project. So the TIF provides that extended financing necessary to get the project cash flowing as necessary. So we're requesting authorization to send the support the parkland exchange for the concept and exchanging the parking lot, or maybe we have to lease the parking lot. We're working through that with engineering and DPW right now. But this is the first step, is to communicate, to get that land sale to be part of this development agreement and see if everybody's acceptable to that change. And the second part is then creating a TIF, and we have that as a separate item, number 7 on tonight's agenda, is authorization to start the process to create the TIF district. I do have more information on this in closed session, but Jeff Hook, the developer, is here, and if you want to ask any questions or have thoughts about the project, he's available to answer any questions.
Step up here, Jeff. If you want to add something, you have the floor. Go right ahead.
No, Patrick did a fantastic job of explaining it. There's so many conversations, I forget where I'm jumping into it. But yeah, we're really excited about this park because we think, certainly there's a value in having that park in that location. We just feel like if it's reoriented, activated with the new residential and the new retail space outletting into it, and the connection 65th Street actually goes through to the park, to the farmers market, whereas 64th, I think part of the problem is 64th dead ends right there. The traffic is kind of busy, so we think doing this, while the park is slightly smaller than it is, we think it's going to be, it's 80% as big, but we think it's going to be twice as active and much better amenity for the community. So
I do want to add the parking area that you see now would be all plowed and maintained by the development.
yeah, basically as Patrick said, so we take the property over, we take care of all the expenses to do all of the work on the site, demoing the buildings, grading it, building it. In the long term, we cut the grass, we shovel and plow, we salt, we do all that kind of stuff. The transfer of the property back to the city is primarily, city ownership of it, but also it's more of a liability issue for us going forward. We're perfectly happy maintaining it because we think it's a mutual benefit to us. Our tenants will enjoy having it, and then the city will also be able to benefit.
Any questions? Do you want to outline your rents while you're here?
It's interesting listening to that conversation. Yeah, so part of when Patrick mentioned the conversation about the parking in the back, stepping all the way back, so when we first proposed this, the idea that Joe, my partner, and I, and the architect came up with was what do we feel is the right project for this site, given the neighborhood, given the size of the properties around it, given the nature of the people that are going to be interacting with it. So we proposed this and then said, okay, how do we make that work, right? So it's difficult. I mean, I could regale you with all the missing middle literature. It's fantastic, but the challenge is the upfront costs and the ongoing, the financing of it. So what we're able to make work is if we could get the property, again, no city outlay of money, but we take care of that, and then the property taxes, it does help connect, right? Now, frankly, to be perfectly honest with you, our rents are slightly higher than the rents that we saw before, because that's how you make it work. And we think our rents tuck right in between the West and Sona. Size of units, nature of units, rents, we're tucking right in there. We feel like that development has created gravity, has created a market, and we're looking for 19 units worth of people who want to live in a little smaller, unit. Community, the park, just kind of, the townhomes that they don't have there. We're confident of that. It is a little challenging when we're out there literally every day. I've got a folder full of things I'm working on. How can I save this money? How can I save that money? How can I make this thing work? And it's going to be a little challenging when you listen to somebody offering a Mercedes and selling it for my Honda price. It's kind of difficult to listen to, but I like all the stuff that Patrick is saying about the development. The East Washington, having grown up here and having certainly a lot of love for the community here, I love that idea. I think it's fantastic. I think it's long overdue for West Dallas to have that identity. So I'm all for it. I was just, so I lost track of my train of thought, but our rents are a little over $2 a square foot, a little smaller on the townhomes because they're larger. They're 1,600 rentable square feet. A good size for a 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath. We think is practically more of a 2-bedroom with a work from home office. We think that market is just dying for that. And Sona Phase 2 or Sona Phase 4, whatever they're calling it, they have the 3 townhomes. I think Mandela is saying the same thing that we see, that there's a market for that type of tenant. So we're excited about that. The other building next door, we think there's having this little community that's just kind of, this is our little home here. Our rents are, again, right in line with them. It's right around that $2 a square foot. They're compact, but not overly compact. We feel pretty good about the mix. We've cut out all of the wasted space is really what we come down to. We don't have a pool, we don't have a dog park, but we feel like when somebody walks into our space, they're going to really feel good about it, be excited about being in it, like the park,
you have
like
a park.
the community. We have a park. We have
Right?
we're excited about
I'm
the.
assuming dogs can use
We're excited,
the park.
yeah. Well, and we're excited about the possibility of what we think we can put into that coffee shop space, as it's called on here. That being something that people can come down and really feel like this is what we're looking for is we want people to feel like this is their home, this is an identity, right? And there's a market, there's a need for the larger developments, there's a need for bringing people into the community, and a little bit of the anonymity. We're looking for the people who want a little bit more of a personal, and we think our tenants are going to stay here a little longer too for that reason.
In your timeline?
Timeline, so we're still trying to shoot for that September groundbreaking on it. Every day we hope that there's going to be a little bit of a nudge on the interest rate front. Again, just where can we save a couple bucks here? You know, a quarter point or a 1/4% or 0.5% makes a world of difference for us. But we're feeling good about where our investment interest is right now. We're knock on wood about halfway where we need to be to get that going. We're looking at March 29th as our first submittal to kick off the rezoning process for it, just because it's all this assembly of all the properties that Patrick's talking about. Yeah, so if we can get this thing going, if it kind of breaks loose, we can get in the ground September, October. We're looking at finishing it up right before Christmas of next year, and renting it out and filling it up. You know, coming into the first of 26 already. It's kind of weird.
So the project has around a $7 million budget, and they're requesting a PAYGO TIF in the range of $1.5 to $1.6 million. And we have Ellers ran a model on that as well. One of the things that we might review to be able to provide a little bit more increment, the scale of this project and our typical administration fee. This is much smaller in terms of the other projects, and we usually have a $25,000 annually coming out of the TIF to put into an admin budget. That's something that we're open to in terms of reviewing. But if we make, as we show here in a minute, the outline of the proposed TIF district, maybe we do need that there, but it just really impacts the increment available to the project and trying to get to the level of returns that this project needs to achieve. So.
Yeah, it's tricky. I mean, our property taxes, you know, give or take $145,000 a year. So
right.
$25,000 is a big chunk versus, you know, a development that's got, you know, they're talking about 6-7 times as large as ours. So administration fee, like Mandel's property is the same administration fee in the model that ours is, and that's 4 properties.
So that's just something I wanted to share that we're reviewing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you have any questions of Jeff.
Is there any other questions of Jeff? No? Well, thank you for
Thank
the
you.
presentation.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Say hi to your mom and dad.
I actually just saw my dad about an hour and a half ago. He took my younger son to the driving range.
Oh.
It is a nice night for that.
All right, then we'll go to item number 7, resolution authorizing the executive director to prepare a plan for the creation of tax increment district number 20, 6400 block of West Greenfield Avenue plan.
Mr. Chairman, I know we've talked about this in the past, but this right here outlines a conceptual model of what the district would look like in terms of a TIF. This is picking up the Crawdaddy's area, the park space, the parking lots, proceeding west to the 6500 building on West Greenfield Avenue, and then there's 2 buildings to the north of that is part of the former motor casting site, but were privately assembled. There's a private individual that bought the warehouse building and the office building, currently vacant, but getting the position that they could be occupied and improved. And then there's a parking lot that is adjacent across the street that we incorporated into that district. Could this district be amended in the future? I know we've talked about a broader area that could be done, but this right now is to stay focused on 6400 block of West Greenfield Avenue. But this is the proposed outline of that TIF district.
So then where is, because motor castings is just to the north of that, right?
Correct. It was bifurcated.
Okay.
You can kind of see like the old footprint of the building on the north.
Okay, yeah, just hanging out there.
Yeah, that's been all demolished.
Right,
But it's owned privately, and
So that's right now not in a TIF at all?
that is not in a TIF district. On the north end of it is. It is in TIF number 7.
Oh, okay.
So that land to the north is around 6 acres or so of the motor casting site, and then if it was assembled with the truck training area, you could get into a larger site. But the north end of motor casting is a separate parcel that is in TIF 7, and then the sliver that's like the L comes down the 6500 street. narrow strip that's
Yep.
on the backside of the old Alice Chalmers site, so.
Okay.
You can kind of see
So,
the.
so would the thought process be at some point, if it warrants it, that you would amend the TIF to possibly include that or something?
Or if we got, you know, positive negotiations or positive looks
Okay.
for development, that is an area that could be,
Expanded?
or a separate district.
Yeah. Okay.
Here are the values of, so 6,500 is assessed today at 232,000, 395,000 for the warehouse building, and then 113 for the office. That would be a base value, so that they pay taxes as those
Right.
values.
Right.
Anything above that would be utilized to help spur development in this area. So this is the model that Ellers performed. This is a PAYGO, so there's no dollars upfront from the city. The development has to achieve success in order to, you know, utilize the increment. And the next model, you can see here, it's around 1.6 million, 1.5 million if you use a 6.5% net present value on the increment stream. So, I welcome any questions or thoughts you may have.
Go ahead, Mr. Clark.
Thank you. With two potential TIFs in play, the one for land by labels and this one,
So land by label is an existing TIF. That's within TIF 16. So
okay.
that one would, we'll go into that in closed session, but that would utilize the increment gain within that existing TIF.
all right, that's
I
fine.
don't know if that answers your.
That answers the question, thank you.
Any further questions? Can I have
Move
a,
approval, I mean,
yeah, I understand.
this resolution?
Yes.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Been moved for approval and second. Is there any further discussion? You want to rule,
Yes.
okay.
Wayne Clark,
Yes.
Karen Gale,
Aye.
Don Niemer,
Aye.
Mike Suter,
Yes.
Jerry Motter.
Yes. Resolution passes.
The other, are you fine with the directive of the communication to council about the land changing?
Yes,
and- okay.
yes, yes,
And- okay.
yes.
That was more of a directive to me to start that process. All right.
Okay, thank you. We'll go to item number 8, consideration relative report on redevelopment initiatives. Patrick, you have the floor. If there's any questions, ask Patrick, please.
I don't have anything. At the next meeting, we'll be reporting on Beloit Road senior housing. I did receive just late Monday, the study from Baker Tilly on strategies on the disposition of Beloit Road. We have to 2027, but it's good to start thinking of this now because when it's going to be here before you know it. And there's ways you can exit early out of the housing tax credits that we utilize. So they have some strategies. We want to go over that with you at the next meeting. That's all I have on that, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Mr. Clark.
With the approval of the I-94 corridor project, would you add something like the I-94 project impact on West Allis as a permanent fixture here? So that we can go to that anytime we'd like?
Okay.
Right. No further discussion, then we'll continue. For agenda items 2, 5, and 6, the committee convened in closed sessions pertinent to the provisions of section 19.8.85/1/E, the state statutes for the purpose of delivering, investing public funds whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. This committee can convene in open sessions after completion of the closed session to consider the balance of its agenda. Can I have a motion to go into closed session?
So moved. Second.
Been moved in closed session. Would you take roll call, please, Patrick?
Wayne Clark,
Yes.
Karen Gale,
Aye.
Ron Niemer,
Yes.
Mike Suter,
Yes.
Jerry Motter.
Yes,
We are now in closed session.
thank you. Patrick, you have the floor.